I'm working for my father now, Kate. He's been sick. Very sick.
But you're not like him, Michael. I thought you weren't going to become a man like your father. That's what you told me.
My father's no different than any other powerful man. Any man who's responsible for other people. Like a senator or a president.
Do you know how naive you sound?
Why?
Senators and presidents don't have men killed.
Oh. Who's being naive, Kay? Kay, my father's way of doing things is over. It's finished. Even he knows that. I mean, in 5 years, the Corleone family is going to be completely legitimate.
Seems legit. With James Chillemi.
Welcome. This is Seems Legit. I am your host, James Chillemi. I just want to, again, give a shout out to that intro. I saw our guest. We have a little behind the scenes action here. I was doing it. I saw him, just kind of nodding to it a little bit. It gets you going. It's something that, A1 job, Tom. Thank you so much for that intro. But yeah, we are broadcasting live tonight from beautiful South Florida. We are also being hosted on Facebook, nextgenusa.com, which is hosting live from Palm Springs, California. So forgive me, but we are going coast to coast with this thing. Can't thank you enough for joining me for the 52nd installment of this /video/podcast that I like to. Somebody asked me this week, so I wanted to make sure that I said it on air. Why I call it Seems Legit. There's so many different shows, and obviously the media has a kind of a stranglehold on information, but we're trying to give you something generic, something not generic, something or from grassroots level of people just discussing ideas. And so while we hear a lot of proliferation of ideas throughout the corporate media, through your day-to-day local news, everything else, everything is purported to be legitimate. This just seems legit. We're going to do as best we can. So joining me tonight, I am very graciously able to host this man. We've been friends for a very long time. He just came out with a really great book. Delved into the meat or into the nuts and bolts of it. That's what we're going to try to do tonight. I'm going to try to get the best understanding I can. It's Bitcoin investing for beginners. As somebody who comes from a more decentralized and free enterprise background, Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, this has been something. I don't know if everybody's seen the HBO Max docu-series, The Anarchists. It was really centered around anarcho-poco and the Bitcoin community. And we'll talk about that in a second with our guests, but it's something that I don't really fully understand. And I always say when people ask me, well, what is blockchain? What is crypto? What is Bitcoin? I always say, I don't think anybody really knows unless they really know. And so I'm bringing somebody on tonight who hopefully really knows. Eli Bowman is a father, author, businessman, traveler. Can't wait to talk to him more, talking behind the scenes forgot how much I like this dude. So if I can, I'm going to bring on Eli Bowman.
Hey, James.
Yo, what's going on?
What's up? Man, I am significantly closer to my camera than you are to yours. So are the vocals coming through okay? Am I all right?
They're perfect.
Cool.
As far as I know, they're perfect.
Okay. Well, then
this is set up for kind of an in-studio type thing, and hopefully as the show gets bigger, I'll be able to bring more and more people in studio. And that was what we set this whole thing up for. So that's the only reason. I had somebody tell me I should be sitting at a desk and I should be Ben Shapiro in your face, but I don't really want to be at this point. What's going on with you, brother?
Dude, I just it's been a whirlwind October. Just been traveling all month. We were in South Carolina for the first 10 days of the month. I'm a big disc golfer. My family's disc golfers, so we were down for like the US championships down there. That was a blast down in at Winthrop University. Then I surprised the wife with her 40th birthday. I don't know if I should have said that on the air, but 29 for the 11th time. So I took her to New York City, your hood, and your origin place, and we had a great time there. We just had fun. It was just a fun trip. We saw a couple Broadway shows, ate at some nice places.
That's awesome. What'd you see?
We saw Music Man with Hugh Jackman, and then we saw the MJ musical at the Neil Simon Theater. That was phenomenal.
I was gonna say I'm jealous. I can only imagine what that was like,
dude. And we just did the city, man. We already did. We both had already gone to like the Statue of Liberty. That's a cool place. We've done Ellis Island. I had a ton of ancestors that came through there. So we had already done that stuff previously. So we just did city stuff. We were all up. We were in Little Italy. We were, which is like not very big. It's like a street. It's
one
like
block.
Yeah, it's like a block. But great food. We ate at Lombardi's. I saw your Jets won. They're 4-2. I mean, come on. Here's my question. Are they really a 4-2 team? That's my question.
Actually, Eli, and it's a really good question. Zach Wilson is undefeated this season when he's a starter. I really do believe they're better than a 4-2 team. We did have to deal with Joe Flacco. He did have one of the best comebacks in Jets history against the Browns, on 4-2 team. But more so than that, the fact that they're the underdogs against the Denver Broncos this week. I don't give betting advice, but if I was to give betting advice, hammer the Jets money line as much as you can.
After watching the Broncos on last night against the Chargers, Jets should clean house.
Who thinks Russell Wilson is a good bet at this point? I'm trying to figure this out.
He's probably the biggest disappointment of the season so far, honestly.
Got to be, but I mean, in his defense, the Denver Broncos don't look very good.
No,
every way you look at them. Yeah. But the MJ musical that sounded amazing, dude. Because we saw the Temptations live during COVID. No, it was right before COVID. Unreal. I cried.
I'd imagine that would be amazing. Yeah. But if you're an MJ fan at all, I mean, even if you just like some of his songs and don't know much about him, that musical, it's really informative. It's kind of like a biography sort of deal, like sort of told from his story.
Wow,
it goes all the way back from he was a kid up until like the Dangerous tour. So it was phenomenal. The dance, the choreography, the music. I mean, the music was good, but it was just good.
It was good. Yeah,
I would turn around and see it again in a heartbeat. It was worth every dollar of the 2 tickets that I bought. So
what'd you think of it? Was that your first time in NYC, or how many times you've been
there?
No,
it's my second time in NYC. My first time when I was on spring break, my senior year, I went with my mom. I bet you didn't think that would be the next thing that came out of my senior year spring break.
I was gonna say.
But my mom took me up to NYC to visit my aunt and my cousin. I remember going to the West Village there with my cousin, who was 21, 22 at the time. Man, when we went back, my wife and I went back to Greenwich Village this trip as well. Honestly, not a lot's changed. It's still a club scene. It's still comedy. It's still jazz. Yeah. It's like it could be 4 a.m. and that place is hopping.
The performing arts, and I always say the Village is where, East Village, Greenwich Village. That's where the city got its name. The city that never sleeps. That's where it came from, because the performing arts in that section of the city are just incredible. Some people, it's not for everybody at the same time, because some people, like to go to bed around 10 o'clock. But if you're a night owl, if you like staying up, if you like the bar scene, like you said, comedy especially, I think some of the greatest comedians ever cut their teeth there. The Comedy Cellar, all that type of stuff is just incredible. As much as I'm gathering.
It was great. It was great all the way up until the end. And in the end, like our flight got canceled coming home. We had to we stayed a night in Queens. by LaGuardia, and then I just got back from the air. We just got back home like I don't know 35 minutes ago.
So full
Excuse me.
disclosure to everybody watching, the reason why this is being held at 8 o'clock is because I got shit, my flight out of LaGuardia got canceled this morning. So listen,
Yeah,
I'm just so glad you made it home safe and everything's okay, and we're able to do this.
thanks,
But
yeah,
next time you have a flight, we're canceling the episode and we're moving it to 3 weeks out because you never know coming out of LaGuardia what's going to happen.
right. You never know. You really
But
don't, man. But it was
no,
clean. It
100%.
was clean this time. So today the weather worked out. It was just a bad combination of inclement weather, and our pilot was like, I guess what's called like timed out. If you travel a lot, you know what that means. Like there are laws, like you can't fly like past a certain number of hours consecutively, and
Sure.
he timed out after we were delayed, and the delay timed him out, and he was like, sorry. And Southwest, we were flying Southwest. They were like, oh, we don't have another pilot. I was like, oh gosh. So
Southwest,
but
dude.
all's well
So
that ends
I flew Southwest for the first time a couple months ago in June to Indiana. It was my
Yeah.
first time ever flying Southwest. I didn't realize they don't have. So you basically just sign up for like a section of the plane, and then you just have to go there and figure out where you're sitting from that point.
You check in, and then they kind of randomly assign you like a place in the boarding line, and then when you get onto the plane, there's no reserved seating. It's just first come first serve. Sit wherever you want. It actually works out really well. It's not really that big. I mean, if you are late in the boarding line, then I mean you're probably sitting next to loud dude who smells. But
Exactly. That's
you
what I'm
got a
saying.
seat.
It's similar to Spirit Airlines. Spirit, it's kind of a similar thing. It might say 13H, but some big dude might come up and go, "Nah, I'm sitting in 13H. You get the hell out of here."
It's like 13 lowercase h. It's like a little
Exactly.
seat.
Go sit on the other side, motherfucker. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Oh man. But I'm glad you had a good time in New York. I know a lot of people are, especially my mother. I hope she's watching. She is one of these people who now believes that New York is dead. It's never coming back. It's a shell of its former self. Yeah, it's what I
We
got
had a
from it.
great time.
It's good.
I mean, Times Square was unreal, and I know look, I can go on and on about New York. I will be going back for sure.
Yeah.
But like Times Square was just amazing. We went twice. Um, I love New York City. I absolutely love it because there was a time we were in the Met, the Metropolitan Museum of Art for
Museum of
9
Art.
years.
Yeah. We were just there too.
And my wife had her purse, and it was kind of like just like a leather, kind of like a backpack purse. You can
That's
use it.
what Nicole wears all the time too. So I
Yeah,
get it 100%.
yeah. So by her, her back was bothering her, and I was like, just give me that, give me that. So I put it on. Now I'm from Ohio. I live in Columbus, Ohio. If I'm walking around a museum or anywhere, a library, the mall, and I've got a purse on my back, and I'm a pretty straight looking dude. Like no one's mistaken me.
Yeah, says you, dude. Says you.
Right. So, but so I think people would look a little bit here in Ohio. They'd be like, why is dude have a purse on his back? But man,
Right.
I didn't even think about it in New York City. No one looked at me funny. Like I was not judged at all. And I love that about the city. Is people can just be who they are, and they're not trying to shove it in your face. They're just who they are. And
Was it you?
everyone's like, cool, do you?
Was it you that posted about Times Square where you were talking about like how everybody was just in themselves and nobody was really in your face about it? And
That was me. Yeah, I
people,
posted
there's
that.
gay
That was
people,
Friday
there's
night.
every ethnicity, every culture, selling weird things, and there's funny smells and there's loud noises, and there's don't know what's going on. It's kind of euphoric in a sense. But yeah, was that you that posted about that? Yeah.
That was me. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that
But
was
I
very astute
so I can't wait
observation.
to go back. Thank you. And I think it's true.
Yeah, it's unlike any
I
a
did
lot of
not
places
see
in the
that
world.
documentary you mentioned in on Netflix, that the Anarchist documentary. Still haven't watched it.
Oh, okay. Because I saw, so again, a little bit of behind the scenes action. I get to see the guest in the bottom left hand corner of the screen while we're doing the whole opening and everything, and I could see him shaking his head like, and every person that I know that comes from more of like a, let's call it a libertarian background, has thoroughly hated that documentary because for lack of a better term, it kind of shits on libertarians, or it kind of shits on the ideology and makes
Yeah.
it more about a specific occurrence that happened in Acapulco like a couple years in a row, and then some
Yeah.
sort of murder, and it becomes sort of a cheap interpretation, or kind of a, I don't know. They kind of just try to. It's like misinformation. It's a
Yeah.
misdirect on what the ideology is to some
It's
sort
kind of
of.
disingenuous.
Exactly. Yeah, I would.
Sure.
That's a better way to describe it. But so glad to have you on. I know we've been, and I it's a loose term, but we've been social media friends for a very long time. Um, I know that we've been, paisan on a lot of different issues. We've seen eye to eye on everything. Certain times, I think actually how we met was we disagreed on a bunch. Most like, most of my friends. So it's kind of interesting.
I don't remember what we disagreed on, but it's possible.
What? So for those that don't know you, if you want, just let them know who you are, your background, where you're from, what your stick is. Go for it.
Yeah. So I grew up. I was born and raised in Columbus, Ohio. I lived in LA for 2 years for a short period of time. Came back to Columbus. I've lived here ever since. I went to Ohio State University and graduated from the business school there. Worked in corporate finance. Quickly learned that that was not a good path for me. I kind of discovered I was unemployable. I was never good. I was never good at jobs. I was never really a good performer. I never liked going to work. I'm sure a lot of people right now are like, yeah, me. I
Yeah, I
don't
was
like
gonna
going to work.
say I'm with you.
So it kind of became clear that needed to own a business. My dad was always a small business owner growing up. Um, but he never really dialed it in as far as how to make it successful, how to make it work. So, didn't grow up with much. Um, but I did see my dad, really be willing to kind of like put his family through a little bit of that hardship to be true to himself, to kind of really try the American dream, try to get something going. um, so I learned some grit from him. So after in 2009, I was working in corporate finance, and one of the greatest things to happen to me at that time, honestly, James, was getting laid off because the economy was. I mean, 2009 it was bad. 2008 crashed, and then 2009 was like still at the bottom pretty much. Um,
Yeah.
and so really after that, I got into I had done a little bit of credit card processing sales, and if you don't know what that
Okay.
is, it's basically like helping businesses reduce that fee of accepting credit and debit cards. There's good money in that, and that money is residual. So I decided to give that a shot again. I did that a little bit in 04, 05, 06, went back and finished college, again, corporate finance. So decided to go back into that, just a grind. For a lot of years, my family we didn't do very well because I was just trying to get it off the ground, get it going. Um, and eventually had some success with that. Uh, did buy an RV, $100,000 RV. I put my family in it. We traveled the country for like nearly 2 years. And that was unbelievable. I didn't work at all. Just kind of lived on the residual income from my payments, like my payments processing portfolio.
Wow.
Um, and then,
Wow.
which was great, made a million memories. That trip changed my life forever. But I saw my business shrink. Yeah, I didn't work, so I saw it
Sure.
slowly shrink and shrink, and I was like, all right, look, I got to get back to work. So after a couple years, we stopped, and I got back into payments processing. I was good at it, but wasn't really fulfilled by doing it. Um, then out of nowhere, a friend of mine introduced me to three guys who assembled bikes for Walmart, built bikes for Walmart. And I was like, what do you mean built bikes for Walmart? What do you mean? Don't I thought they just build their own bikes. I didn't even know that like Walmart hires an assembly company to build their bikes. They don't have their employees do it. I mean, maybe at the small rural stores, but not like in
Sure.
most of the stores. And so these guys were like, "Hey, we weren't happy with our previous employer. We have a plan to like start our own thing, to try this thing on our own. We just need someone with a little capital and that's willing to take a chance on us." So, kind of long story short, invested in those guys, and last year We kind of built a company that got the rug pulled out from underneath us by Walmart. And we were just dead in the water for like 5 months. Fast forward to March of this year, March of 2022, we finally started working with Walmart again. And this year, they awarded us 34 Walmart locations for us to build bikes. And we're just also now getting into the shopping cart repair space, which is like its own like vertical within my company now. And
Wow.
it's super profitable. Bikes are super profitable. We're probably by the end of the year, I think there's a good chance we break 7 figures in revenue for the year. And
Dude.
this isn't even our first full year. We started at the end of quarter 1. So next year I'm really stoked about breaking. I'd like to break 3 million in revenue. That's in revenue. So
Sure,
we're just
sure.
gonna keep growing. We're just gonna keep growing. So finally have some business success. I'm really, I can hang my hat on. Feels really good. Very fulfilled professionally. Wrote the Bitcoin for investors book.
Well,
It's
let's get to that. Well, we're gonna get to the book in a second. Let's leave it at that for a second. I want to ask a couple questions about that because I know there's a lot of
absolutely
people, especially in today's day and age, and especially in today's economy, who like you perfectly. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. A lot of people don't like their jobs, don't like what they're doing. They're not feeling fulfilled, as you put it, for on a day-to-day basis, 9 to 5, 7 to 7, whatever it is, 3 days a week, 5 days a week, 80 hours a week, whatever it is. You just put it so perfectly that you weren't fulfilled and you found a different avenue. What kind of catapulted you into the entrepreneurial field? Because it's very difficult for a lot of people to bridge that gap and to make that
yeah.
transition. How did you stumble upon that?
Well, a lot of it was born out of necessity, honestly. I
Gotcha.
Like I said, getting laid off was kind of like a blessing in disguise. If you heard that term before, um, because
Hmm.
it kind of forced my hand. I was so tired of working in corporate America that I was like, I got to get out of this and I got to do something on my own. I just know it. I felt it in my blood, James. Like I was like, I got to get out there
Sure.
and do my own thing. I just have to. Um, and so I did. And I can't say I can't tell you what makes someone kind of break into that or kind of like break out of that mold of corporate America. I don't know because I feel like it really just depends on someone's personality and their inclinations and whatnot.
Right.
But
Right.
but for me, it just was born from a sense of a lack of fulfillment in every single job I had. And I had some jobs that paid great. I had some jobs that I would go in the morning, I'd work until dinner, I'd come home, eat dinner with the family, put the kids to bed, kiss my wife, go back to work and work until midnight because they wouldn't let me have a laptop to bring home in those days and then come home at like 12:30, 1 o'clock, sleep for a little bit, wake up, do the same thing the next day. So like I couldn't do it. So for me, it was born
Yeah.
out of necessity. It felt authentic for me to be a business owner. And I quickly learned that once I started and things were rough, like I looked at the bank account, no money. I thank God that I got to zero so many times in my adult life, even after we had kids. I, being at zero, greatest thing. Greatest thing because you just get hungry, you get desperate, and you get creative, and it flips a new switch, right? You get into a new gear and you just really start being like, "Look, I gotta produce or I'm not
Yeah.
eating. My family's not eating."
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's such an interesting perspective because that's like my biggest fear. My biggest fear is going back to there's a great quote, and I'll ask you the same question. Uh, do you think it's better to be poor than rich than poor again, or be poor always?
poor than rich than poor. But here's the
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
Here's why. You could hand a check for $1 million to someone, and you better hope that they become a millionaire so that they can keep that money. Because if they're not a millionaire up
sure,
here, they'll go right back to zero. You won't even need to do anything.
sure.
So if you can start from nothing and become rich, and you lose it all, but getting rich, it totally changed who you are on the inside. Look, you could take everything away from me right now. You could take my business away, take
Yeah,
everything
good
away from me.
perspective.
I promise you, with what I've learned and the way that I have approached myself as an investment, I'll
Sure.
get it all back somehow. I promise. I promise. And
That's
I'm not being cocky either,
no,
James.
I know that's an
Like,
interesting perspective though, because a lot of
because
people don't
I
have that.
put the investment into myself, and you are investing in yourself. There's no greater ROI, none. It can be expensive or as
Sure.
cheap as you want, but listen, you become wealthy sometimes before the money comes.
I was gonna say, saying rich or poor or wealthy or not, it doesn't necessarily have to do with finances. That can be a state of mind.
It could be. It could be.
Yeah, and then one leads to another because if you're not wealthy in your values, if you're not wealthy in certain things, you're never going to be wealthy financially. Those things kind of play off each other, in my
And
experience, anyway.
no, you're right. And talking a big game is bullcrap. Because you ever go to
Right.
Instagram and you flip through and you're like, guys are like, wads of bills and they're leaning against a
Andrew
Ferrari.
Tate.
Like, look, it's one thing to be inspired by those things. Like,
Yep.
you could see a Ferrari, you could stand by it and like, put that on Instagram, but like, don't put the play out there like that's your car.
Sure.
You're like, hey, look, I saw this Ferrari. I love it. One day I'm going to own one of these. I love seeing stuff like that. But when people are like, look at what I built and it's not theirs, talking a big game is one thing, but like actually being willing to fail, being willing to get to zero, people are scared to death. People are scared
Oh,
to death
I'm
of
one of them,
failing.
dude. You're
Well,
100%
it's
correct, and
okay.
it's
It's okay because you don't have to go from 0 to 100 on being ready to be an entrepreneur.
right.
You just got to take one leap at a time. Gary Vaynerchuk, a huge hero of mine, huge influence over my mentality, over my approach to my business, over my approach to a
Sure.
lot of things. He's got great advice. He's like, look, if you have an entrepreneurial spirit, and honestly, James, you and I both know that you do. I mean, we're not going to pretend you don't. I know you do.
No, I
Whether you
do. I
whether
do.
you whether you say you don't, I don't. It doesn't matter. I know you've got
I,
one. I know
I
you've got one.
yeah.
Do something small. Do something on the side. The thing about that's tricky with you as an attorney is that legally, I don't know what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do.
Right. Yeah.
But if there's a way for you to have something,
No, but
scratch
here's the
that
deal: is it's
entrepreneurial
it,
itch.
no, I'm with you. I'm with you, Eli. I'm 100% with you. What strikes me and what puts me in a bind sometimes is the fact that I am an entrepreneur because I do own my own business. And so I have to juggle not only dealing
Right.
with the legal side of things, being an attorney, being with people's advisor,
Right.
having to deal with the rules of professional regulation and the Florida bar and the federal bar and everything
I
else.
was going to say that as an attorney, you kind of are in a way, you are an entrepreneur in many ways.
Yeah. And owning my own law, that this is one of the things
Is
that
that you have
kind of
your own law firm?
I do. Yeah.
Bro,
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
all the way there.
Fight
Okay. All right. I wasn't sure if you were with it.
fightforme.com.
You're already there. So we're having the conversation now. So now we're talking, you and I are talking the same language now.
Yeah, it 100%. That's why to hear you talk about this thing, to talk about going from working in the corporate industry, working 9 to 5, doing whatever, not feeling fulfilled, finding what you wanted to do, it strikes me so to my very core because I always said to myself, I never want to have, all right, this is going to sound bad, but I always said I never wanted to have a boss. I never liked my bosses. I always thought things could be run differently, could be run more efficiently, run with more smarter. Um, and to that fact, I never wanted to have to work for an hourly rate. Sitting there from 9 to 5 for me was always like, well, what am I doing? Because it was the same thing as studying. Studying for me was never, all right, well, I'll go into the library and study for 6 hours. And people would always say that, oh, it was a badge of honor. I studied for 12 hours. I studied for 10 hours. I was there for 2 days. But were you really? Because you were on your phone half that time. You were getting up to go talk to the pretty girl in the corner of the room. You were
Yeah.
going, you weren't doing that. I would much rather go to work or go study or do whatever your work schedule looks like. Accomplish it as quickly and efficiently as possible to do. If that's what we're going to be told, if that's what our task is at hand. But that's why to keep my heart because that's what I've kind of structured my whole life around.
Yeah. And that doesn't surprise me. You've presented that for years. As far as like, that's kind of how no, I think you and I are cut from the same cloth. I really do.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably 1000% correct. What my only question and my last question on the topic, because um, I really do want to kind of delve into this a little bit just for my own edification. What practically, how does someone make the move? So you said you were, working corporate world, ended up working for yourself. How did you practically make that jump?
Okay. So there's a tremendous amount of information on the internet, right? Is you're never it's like being ready to have a kid. You're never ready. You're never ready for that moment. You feel like you could be somewhat prepared, but you're never actually ready until the kid comes, and then the presence of the kid is what actually gets you ready,
Gotcha.
right? Like
Gotcha.
that reality smacks you in the face, and then you're
Yeah.
like, "Okay, now I know what to do." And that's honestly kind of what it's like. And yeah, it can be scary. It can be scary, especially when you don't have like a nest egg or a cushion to
Sure.
to kind of to fall back on. Which is why, like, sometimes it's wise to kind of get started part-time so you have at least a little bit of a creation there uh to work with. But when you're starting at 0 and you leave your job because you're like, "I'm so done with my job, I'm ready to do the thing that I've always wanted to do," it can be terrifying. But that's why I said earlier, I'm so glad I went to 0, and I'm so glad I went there several times because it got me desperate, and it got me scrappy, and it got me I mean, and for years trying to build my payments processing business, I ate crap sandwiches for years
Sure.
because and
Sure.
just was broke for a long time because I knew it took time to develop to develop myself. And really, that's what I wish I knew earlier, I guess. That's what I would tell someone early on is make sure you know how to invest in yourself
Mm,
before doing
mm.
it. Because if you're not ready to be an entrepreneur, if you're not ready to to earn your stripes, to take the lumps, then
Yeah.
then you're gonna get knocked around. And if you're someone that's had 8th place trophies your whole life, like Gary Vee says, if you've gotten a participation medal for everything you've ever done, it's gonna be extra hard
Yeah.
because you're so used to getting praise for just playing the game that when you're out in the world and it's like you either win or you lose, losing hurts.
Oh, yeah.
And thank God it hurts.
Right.
Honestly, like losing is one of the greatest blessings you can have because
It's
you
funny.
get a chance to go get.
It's funny because as a martial artist, right? So I've recently taken up getting back into kickboxing and Muay Thai and everything else. And so I actually talked about, he was talking about wanting to fight. And I said to him, if you want to be a prize fighter, more power to you. But what you have to know is that you have to love being punched in the face because
You have to
everyone else
love
you're going
it?
to go against in the next few months, next few years in your career loves being punched in the face. This is why they get in the business. And it's no different in the entrepreneurial field or in any other corporate job. You're going to get punched in the face.
Yeah.
Love it a little bit. At least a little bit
You
because it's
better
going to
love the
happen.
journey.
Exactly, exactly. And a lot of people think, oh well, there's some sort of mountain that I'm climbing, and when I get to the top, I'm going to look down on everybody. I'm going to smile, and I'm going to sit, and I'm going to collect my roses. That's never the case.
The fastest way to fall off the mountain is to think there's a top.
Nah,
No top.
my
There's no
man,
top. Like you
my
said, you gotta
man.
fall in love with the climb because the climb is every day. The climb is constant. You are never at the top, and you should never think there's a top. There's no top. It gets nice up high, but there's no top.
Right?
So, like, unless you're willing to climb and keep climbing until your last day of life, then it may not be for you because there's no such thing as arriving. Like for me, there's no dollar amount,
Right,
there's no accolade,
right,
there's no achievement like I can make in business in the business world or income wise or anything like that where I go, okay, sweet, I've arrived, I'm done. I don't have to work anymore.
right.
That's never going to happen. And that's what separates a real entrepreneur from someone who wants to be an entrepreneur is they are looking for like, I want a mansion, I want a Bentley, I want a Rolex. Uh,
I want to be what I see on Instagram. I want to
right, right.
be,
And
exactly.
that's fine. Like if that's your thing, cool. I'm not crapping on that kind of lifestyle. Like if that's what gets you where you want, cool. Like if that's what drives you, more power to you, do your thing.
Sure.
But it better come from a place like that's real. Because if it comes from just a superficial place, not only will you never get there, but when you get there, you won't stay there. You gotta be like, it's gotta come from all the way inside.
My dad always says, and he's been a tremendous influence in my life, especially in the last few years. But he always says, "Show me your why. Show me your way to be successful in that." And that's something that strikes me all the time, because every day it's very easy to fall into, well, I need to hit this amount of money, or I need to have this amount of employees, or I need to do this amount. It, at the get you where that's a byproduct
Yeah.
of providing the service and the value that you should be doing through whatever business.
I love that. And if it doesn't fulfill you, then it's like a job.
Right.
I believe me, I meet business owners all the time who hate what they do, but they got into it because they were good at something. They were good at something, and they're like, I just want to I want to do my own thing. And so what they do is they actually own a job. They don't go to a job, but they own it. So it's the same thing. It's just the title's different. Instead of
Right.
manager, it's owner. But you got it, because you
Right.
eat what you kill in some of these businesses,
Sure.
particularly any trade. And you own a job, but like really owning a system. And this is a huge, I think, distinction. Since we're on this, a huge distinction is, what is it between owning a job versus like owning a business, right? You can be
Mm,
a plumber. You can own a plumbing company, and you might be the only plumber in that company. Guess what? You own a job. Cool, like, good for you. You don't have a boss. I mean, your customers are your boss in that
sure.
situation. So you have a boss. It changes every job, but cool. Like, at least you don't have someone breathing down your neck. You have a sense of ownership, and I think that there's something to be said about that. But imagine being a plumber and saying, I'm actually going to just eat dirt for like a couple years, because I'm going to bring on a couple other plumbers, make sure they get paid. I'm going to take a piece off the top. They'll make more money than me, but I'll have some time freedom,
Ah,
and I can maybe focus on scaling this thing, and then you can become a
sure.
business because you have a system. So now you've got 6 plumbers, you cover the entire, greater metropolitan area of your city, and you're not out there turning wrenches and fixing pipes, but your guys are, but you've scaled, and so now you have a system. Your guys are doing the work. You're just focusing on running the company, and
Dude,
to me, that is the goal of that should be what the goal of every entrepreneur is not to own a job, but to own a system that pays you while you decide to scale, and while you decide to diversify what you do as a business owner. Right now, I'm looking to acquire a financial company, um, uh, and bring them into the umbrella.
to the fold on everything you're doing.
I'm always looking at businesses to acquire. I've got some strict standards, um, but if it's a healthy business, and I'll talk to the owner, I'm like trying to figure out what drives them. If it's just a paycheck, I love hearing that, because I'm like, sweet. Well, if it's just about money, I'll pay you. I'll just buy your business. But
Yeah, 100%.
it's the ones that are like, no, this is my baby, that they're never going to let it go. And
Right.
those are hard to acquire, because then they have a sense of ownership there, and they should.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because they're the one that have acquired, generated the system. They're the ones that have done it. And so when they're going to
Yeah.
sell it, I mean, you just struck my heart though in saying that, because as someone who, like, I obviously fully aware that I'm trying my best to form the entrepreneurial sphere in my world, in the legal game. And so I'm struggling in many ways in terms of trying to figure out how to scale. It gets really, really difficult sometimes in trying to juggle family life, work life, while also keeping the business afloat, while also paying your employees, while also, X, Y, accounting and marketing and advertising, and it gets, but to scale it and to
A
try to
lot to
grow it,
do.
yeah, it's been really interesting for me, and it's been very stressful, and a lot of anxiety and things along those lines. But I've found myself emotionally and mentally, to go back to what you're saying earlier, at zero many times. Like, I'm like, I thought I was this great guy. I thought I had everything figured out. I thought life was my oyster, and now out, why on a Tuesday afternoon I'm anxious, or I don't know what to tell my employee to do because I've never done it myself, and things along those lines. It's like, it's difficult. It's really, the word, I think the best word I can
You're earning
use to
your
describe.
stripes. You're earning your stripes. Like, you
Yeah,
can't just go from like 0 to hero. You can't just go from someone who just started a law firm, who maybe has a clerical person, and to having 6 attorneys that are partner classification,
Sure,
like that,
sure, yeah,
and having a staff of 17. That's tough. Like, you can't
yeah,
just make that jump. That doesn't even happen.
yeah,
But dude, in my opinion, you're in the trenches now, and like now is like
yeah.
where you're learning all your look. It's not a game I know. I'm not an attorney. I know attorneys, but like I'm not one. I don't know how to scale a law firm, but I know people who have scaled all kinds of different businesses. You might have a mentor
Sure.
already, but I know I can get you in touch with someone that's scaled a law firm before.
No, yeah, and that's the thing is, so the business aspect of it is something I'm new to because I've always been somebody who had a boss, and so even in law school, and you said you made a good point earlier about mentoring. I had a mentor who schooled me in the legal game. He didn't necessarily school me in the business game, and
Right.
so up now I'm trying to figure out how to scale this business, how to grow it. And correct something I said earlier. I've never asked someone who's under me to do something I've never done. I've done it all from taking the garbage out to going to get coffee to doing everything else. It's trying to find, and you could probably speak to this as well. How do you how do you best evaluate talent in X, Y, or Z industry? Because it's very difficult in today's day and age because a lot of people don't want to work. A lot of people are, taking a route and hating their lives. How do you convince them to try to come and join a company or an organization that's doing something that they can be fully invested in?
I think that they will tell you,
Gotcha.
whether by their actions or what. I think you gotta be a student of people,
Mm,
anymore moving forward. I mean, if you wanna be a major player in whatever game, whatever industry you're in, if you're not studying human nature, then you've already lost. You're already, at least at a minimum, you're already behind.
so you're in the people game no matter what you're in.
No matter what, absolutely. You are in the people game, and you should be studying. If you own a company, and even if you aspire to own a company, you should be studying human behavior like crazy. You should be studying NLP, neuro linguistic programming. It's basically a method of communication. You should be studying that. You need to learn how to read body language. You gotta the people. They say the cream rises to the top. Look, if you're working with people who are good at what they do, you might say you scale your law firm, and you've got an attorney who is really good in the courtroom, like just a really good trial
Yeah,
attorney, and you're like, okay, sweet, I can see this guy, becoming partner, coming on board, like growing with
sure.
us. You get him into partnership, you get him into management, and he sucks. He's not ready for that.
Right,
Right? So like now it's like, oh man, I took my best guy out of the courtroom, and now he's like
right.
doing like
Where you-
consulting stuff, right? Like he's getting the other guys ready for the courtroom. Um and that's just a law firm example. It could be let's take my business. Like there could be I have a guy who is amazing at assembling bikes. We pay weekly, and this guy's paychecks are, I swear he makes more money than me, I'm pretty sure. Um, and he's so good, but I know for a fact that he's not gonna go kill it as a manager. He's not. He's
right,
not gonna be able to manage a bunch of people, and I don't want him to, because I've been able to study his human nature, his personality, his nonverbals. I already know that he doesn't want to do that. I already know he's super content and fulfilled and happy doing what he's doing now. I'm not going to touch him. I'm just going to let him
sure.
do his thing. Make sure, like, hey, you need anything, buddy? How's this going for you? You need some new tools? Like, here, throw him a bonus. Like, keep him where he is and keep him happy. That's what I want to do. So to your question about, how do you identify talent? I really think when you study human nature and you become a student of people, they make themselves known to you. And then you can kind of explore, right? Like you can like ask some probing questions. Like how do you like what you do now?
Yeah,
How do you watch how they, and then, maybe step back, watch how they interact with people. Are
right,
they a good people person? Are they complimentary? Or do they take ownership even when something's
right.
not their fault? Like that's who you want on an executive level, is someone who's willing to
No,
take ownership,
you
extreme
couldn't
ownership.
You couldn't, yeah, extreme ownership, and I love the Jocko reference. I mean, it's kind of funny because you hit the nail on the head again. I have somebody who works with us who is not necessarily in his job. He's supposed to be a little bit more tech savvy. He's supposed to be a little bit more on the administrative side, a little bit more savvy and efficient in what he does. However, when he gets on the phone with people or when he meets face to face with people, which again, he is the first face people are seeing at our firm, it is electric how
Magic.
people have people have been, the feedback I've been getting from women, children, men, oh, he's doing a great job, or he made me feel really at home, or he made me and you have to understand, every time somebody comes to me, it's usually the worst time in their life.
Sure.
Either they're being charged with a crime where they're facing multiple years in jail, either they're being sued by somebody, whether it be
Yeah.
a company or an individual seeking hundreds of thousands of dollars. This is the worst day of their life. They're coming to a lawyer because they want to see my pretty little face. And so when
Sure.
they come to us, we have to be at least as accepting as we possibly can. So it's funny because when you say we're in the people business, selling ourselves in many ways. And I love to see,
Oh yeah.
anyway, I love to see that someone cannot be as technologically or technically adept as a lot of other applicants and still be able to kill the game.
Yeah. So what the fact that you even like notice that about this guy shows me that you have a
Mm,
sense of awareness in like in your organization already. You're already paying attention to people. So like there are some people, in fact, we'll just say attorneys. There are probably some attorneys that have law firms that they've started that they're trying to scale, who would be like, look, this guy is supposed to be a tech guy, supposed to be a clerical guy, administrative guy.
right, right,
He's not doing great at that. Instead, he's talking to people, and they're not even seeing that he's good with the people. They're not even seeing the
right,
strength
right.
that this dude is exhibiting all the time, with people. They're only seeing that he's not fulfilling the tech side. So obviously, like, you see it, move him in time, move him away from all the tech clerical stuff,
Sure.
get him in front of as many people as possible.
Right.
Obviously, because I think you already see that, and maybe move someone else into the tech, or have that someone else take that on in addition to what they're doing, and then let that boy shine.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And so, listen, I'm so glad we were not supposed to go 49 minutes into, just talking about,
Business,
yeah, about business and about everything. But I'm so
a
glad we
passion,
did.
man.
I'm so glad we did. And really do, Eli. I've so much enjoyed talking to you for the past 49 minutes. I'm sure we're going to do this again. But more so than not,
Much.
I did tell a bunch of people that you were going to make them rich. So I do want to talk. And I know that's like the sub caption of the book is, don't read this book if you're trying to get rich. We're trying to give you investment strategies for the long haul. So did want to talk a little bit about the book. Where did your interest in crypto come from? I know we come from similar political backgrounds. I know we come from more of the, let's call it the Austro-libertarian sphere, free enterprise sphere. Where did your interest in crypto specifically come from?
Really good question. By the way, if people have been listening so far, some of the things that you and I have talked about, it can make them rich. I just want to make that really clear. All right. So
Sure.
secondly, back, to the book, or my interest in crypto.
Yeah.
It absolutely is rooted in my political inclinations years ago.
Okay.
Um, I'm you can't put me as a Republican. You can't put me as a Democrat. You can't even put me as a member of the Libertarian Party. I
Sure.
really, I kind of don't fit into any of those three subsets.
Be
Um,
both, brother.
yeah, I know, and I love that. I love that about you. I always have. Um, and it's like, but what you can label me as is someone who really, really believes that humans thrive with maximum freedom. And that's not to say that some regulation doesn't make sense. I think it does, and
Sure.
in certain cases, especially in moderation. One moment.
Take your time. I know we've been talking a lot. So
Oh, I gotta love live
don't
stuff,
worry
right?
about it.
Um,
Mhm.
so, but I saw Bitcoin and I saw cryptocurrency as as a means to kind of, for the people to take back money. Because right, when you look at the history of money, it's really fascinating. At very early on, it was just like, they used seashells and wampum and
Right.
and
Right.
gold and gems, anything that was
Commodities.
rare and regional at the time, right? Like that was money. People were like, "Hey, that's rare," and I barely see that. Yeah, I would love to have that rare thing. Here's my good. Give me that rare thing, and then bam, there's like a transaction. Everyone's happy, cool, right? And then like regionally, money was money because the same rare things existed in those areas. And then gold pretty much became like pretty much standard money because gold is rare everywhere,
Right.
and it
Recently,
doesn't
recently for
corrode.
sure.
There are
Yeah.
lots of reasons why gold has always been valuable. Um, and then then you have national currencies, which is really a relatively new phenomenon in the world of human history. Is current actual like currency that is only functional within the borders that we call nations. And a lot of the big ones for years were backed by gold or backed by something, right? Sometimes even silver for a short period of time here in the US. But now it's not backed by anything. Now it's what's called fiat currency. I know the people that watch your show already know this stuff. Uh,
So
you-
no, I don't want you to assume that, because a lot of the people that watch the show are, and this is what I'm hoping, is we're going to reach it out. So when you say backed by gold, explain what you mean.
so whenever for many years when a dollar was produced by the United States government, a
Right, just a
dollar
piece
of
of paper. When the
yeah,
piece of paper was produced, right?
that piece of paper used to be a note for gold because gold would then be there'd be an equal value measure of gold stored in Fort Knox or stored in a secure place. So every single dollar, every single slip of paper that was the United States dollar used to be able to be exchanged for an actual amount of gold.
Mm.
Was literally 1 to 1 dollar, currency to gold. And then, over time, that ratio kind of changed a little, but that's not really material. Ultimately, in 1913, it was the beginning of the end for currency. And then in the 70s, we went completely off the gold standard. And now we have what's called fiat currency. Fiat is basically a fancy French term for it's money because the government says it's money. That's it. Our money is not backed by anything. Here's what I love about cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency is is a currency for the people by the people. And it's not reserved to borders. It's not reserved to nations. It's not reserved to races. It's not reserved to age. It's not reserved to anything except do you have some? If you have some, and that means you have the means to verify and help verify the transactions of others, and you are now part of this economy where people can exchange cryptocurrency. Now, we are still at a place where people kind of view cryptocurrency as a way to get rich with dollars. Okay. And that's okay. That's normal. That's really kind of what my book is about. My book is about investing in Bitcoin the same way you would invest in stocks. But my book is designed for people who have never invested in Bitcoin before to begin investing in Bitcoin. Not
So
just
let's
buying Bitcoin. You can buy Bitcoin. And then in the
let's
book it shows you how to buy Bitcoin. It tells you how to buy Bitcoin and explains what it is to buy Bitcoin on an exchange, talks about cold storage and the difference
right.
between
So
those things.
let's stop there for a second. Let's stop there for a second. So when you brought up fiat currency before, so fiat being the Latin term for by decree, obviously decreed economically would mean that a government is setting an interest rate, a government is setting a value, government is setting what you're supposed to exchange here to here. What is it different? Who is setting the monetary limit? Who is setting what each value is with each individual Bitcoin?
With Bitcoin, from the very beginning of Bitcoin, there was an established maximum amount of Bitcoin that would ever exist in the world ever. And
It's like 24 million or whatever it was.
I don't know the exact number
240
offhand.
million, something like that.
But yeah, so it was something like that. And so like right from jump, Bitcoin had an element of scarcity. So because of scarcity, and you need scarcity for value. Otherwise,
I was gonna say,
you got
so
fiat
explain
money again.
let's stop there for a second. So what is scarcity? Why does scarcity make value more valuable?
Okay, if gold wasn't scarce, I mean, this is something a 5-year-old would understand. If
Right. Meaning you
gold
can't get a lot of it.
existed everywhere,
Right.
what would it be worth?
Right. Nothing.
Just its like intrinsic value, right? Like it wouldn't be worth like anything like what it is now. It would
It's
be
like toilet
used
paper, or it's
yeah,
like
exactly. It would be used for
yeah, anything else.
silverware. People wouldn't think twice about throwing it away. I mean, that if gold was everywhere, it wouldn't be
Right.
valuable. So scarcity is what makes gold as valuable as it is. So moving that to
Right.
Bitcoin, scarcity helps establish a demand and a demand for Bitcoin, which then in turn establishes a value of Bitcoin.
Mm. So if something's less,
So
if
beca-
something's more scarce, it's more valuable.
correct.
Okay.
It depends on the context in which it's scarce. For example, people want Bitcoin because they anticipate Bitcoin to increase in value. So we have a lot
Sure.
of speculation still in Bitcoin, and that's to be expected. Um, so that's one of the reasons why scarcity is making Bitcoin valuable. But yes, when something that is designed to be a currency has an established amount of scarcity, then absolutely. If the context of the thing is currency, scarcity will always establish value.
Okay. And so at this point, I have a
Diamonds,
few
same
questions.
thing, gems, precious gems.
Right.
You don't go in your front yard and take a shovel and dig and find a bunch of diamonds.
Right. Right. And same thing with, same thing with big screen TVs, same
That's
thing with
right.
exotic cars.
Cigars.
Yeah, exactly. You could go down the list of things that aren't produced a lot because they're very difficult to produce. They
Right.
rise in value because you can't get as much of them.
There's a demand for them, but there's not a whole lot out there.
So there's not exactly supply and demand is the law of nature in many ways. And so Bitcoin kind of fills that need for some sort of decentralized currency that you can move back and forth. But here's a couple questions that I have. And this is my questions personally, because I've always been confused a lot of the crypto sphere. In terms of being a currency, do you see it rising to the level of a currency? Because right now, I see crypto as some sort of commodity that you can invest in, akin to a. But in terms of trying to use it at your local Walmart, the volatility in it just doesn't make it viable as some sort of currency.
So that's a really excellent question because it's multifaceted.
Mm,
What is it going to take for Bitcoin or just say any cryptocurrency? What's it going to take for it to be used as currency? It's going to take someone that's willing to spend it and someone who's willing to
to accept it. Right.
receive it.
Right.
So,
Right.
it's hard to go find a big box retailer like Meyer or Walmart or Dick's
Sure.
Sporting Goods, et cetera, Kroger, where you can go in and pay with Bitcoin. You can't. You still can't do
Yeah,
that.
because the problem is spend 0.006% of a Bitcoin on a gallon of milk, and that 0.006% next week is worth a penny or is worth $6 million.
You don't. Now that principle, because of the volatility, it's volatility is very
Right.
natural and normal in any kind of speculative environment.
Sure.
Really, fiat currency, the US dollar and other global currencies, it's the same thing, only it's spread out over time. Like, what has happened to the value of the dollar over the last 50 years, James?
It's funny because you talk to somebody, you talk to your
spending power, like,
yeah, you talk to your grandparents and you go, "Oh, back in my day, your $5 whatever was worth a penny or was worth cents," and you're like,
yeah,
"Well, why?
yeah,
What's going on?"
yep. So if people just look in the past, they'll see that the value of the dollar only really ever goes in one direction anymore. It used to kind of do a little bit of this for like 150 years, and then like 60 hit, and it's been like this ever since. Um, and
Yeah.
so and so Bitcoin is very, very volatile. But and people think, oh, okay, it used to be worth $60,000 like a year and a half ago, and now it's like 19.5 right now. So like,
Right.
whoa, it's never going to go back up to 60. It probably will.
Right.
It
No, probably
probably
will
will.
skyrocket past that.
I think it will.
Yeah,
I think we're
I
gonna
agree.
see. I think the next real big bullish run of Bitcoin taps $100,000. I really do.
Well,
I
so
don't think
yeah,
that
so my
happens.
question,
I don't think
the
that happens
logical
until
question would be
after
why?
2023, but that's just my
The que
opinion.
the logical question would be why? Why do you believe that?
Well, I think right now we have a lot of speculators in it. So right now, the value of Bitcoin and all cryptocurrencies is going to pretty much match the stock market. It's going to match other markets because right now, most people, when you think, "Hey, buy Bitcoin," what are they thinking? They want to get rich. Most people aren't
Sure,
thinking of
sure. It's an
using
investment.
Bitcoin as a currency.
Right. That's my question. Yeah. So that's my
Yeah.
question. So why is it that people should view any, and I know you kind of encompassingly use cryptocurrency as some sort of sector. The problem is that there's so many, and I know there's some people watching tonight who I've told who got really really hurt in the Bitcoin, or not in the Bitcoin bubble, but in the cryptocurrency bubble, right? And
Yeah.
so, what is it that separates Bitcoin, Ethereum, P, Litecoin, any of the OneCoin, any of these coins that have made it kind of out of the uh,
Out of
the
obscurity.
dragon hole into the spectrum? What is it them from the other ones?
So I think timing is huge. Pretty much all the ones you mentioned have been around since the beginning. There are some rare exceptions
Yeah,
like Doge. Even Dogecoin is super
I
old.
have
I've got a Dogecoin story
Dogecoin.
myself. Yeah, I've got a great story myself about Dogecoin. It's kind of bittersweet, but then there's like Shiba Inu. It's pretty relatively new coin. I bought I bought millions of it back when it was like really new. Then I thought, okay, this is just one of those. The meme coin classification was kind of coming out at that time when Shiba Inu was sort of coming out, and I
Yeah.
was like, oh, it's a meme coin, man. I don't want to deal with it. Sold all my Shiba, then it skyrocketed. But really, what's the practical? And then this kind of goes to your point, James. What's the practical use of Shiba Inu? Well, the answer is nothing
Right.
unless people decide that it's currency,
Correct.
and then it's currency. But you got to remember, these coins are backed by technologies. So Bitcoin uses the blockchain. Ethereum uses
Ah,
its own version of technology, right? So, like in my opinion,
yeah.
Ethereum can scale higher. It's got a higher ceiling than Bitcoin, but Bitcoin's the granddaddy. It's been
So what is
it's Bitcoin. It's like gold. It's like gold. Like
sure?
gold is worth. I'll be quick on this point, okay?
Yeah. Go.
When you look throughout history, like the amount of gold that used to be able to buy you an automobile in 1930 is really about the same amount of gold that could get you an automobile today. Roughly, it's not exactly the same,
I get what you're saying.
but it's
Yeah, I get what you're
close,
saying.
right? So like the value of gold has increased as the as inflation has increased. Um, Generally, it's not exact, but if you look back, generally it's the case. So it's no different. I lost my point, James. It's been a long day. What were we talking
No,
about?
no, 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 no worries, no worries. We were talking about you. You were talking automobiles and being able to buy, with
Yes.
Bitcoin or with
Yeah.
gold, you're
So
able to buy the same amount.
yeah. Um, Bitcoin is like gold. It's like the gold of crypto. It will always be what it is. Everything will always have a value in reference to Bitcoin. It's like, okay, well, how many Bitcoin? You know, that's what you see in exchanges. You'll look at Ethereum. You'll see the price of Ethereum in US dollars, and what do you see right next to it? The price
The
of
price in
Ethereum
US
in
dollars.
Bitcoin.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So here's a question for you. So I know you're big on Bitcoin as being kind of the stalwart of the crypto community. What is it? What is the blockchain? What does that mean to mine Bitcoin? What does that all mean?
So I am not a mining expert, nor actually am I a blockchain expert.
Okay,
Um,
but your understanding, what do you understand it
yeah,
as?
okay. So, like, just generally speaking, the blockchain is kind of like a fancy ledger technology, where it's a record keeping technology, and it's decentralized.
Okay,
So it's not like it's hosted by the government.
right,
It's a decentralized ledger record keeping technology. And the way that it functions, the reason that it works is because different it uses people that have we'll call it proof of stake
sure,
or people that have evidence that they have records on that blockchain that they have for things like Bitcoin or Ethereum if you're using the Ethereum network. Those those people's accounts can be used to validate and verify transactions on the blockchain. So it's essentially, that's why I call it, it's currency for the people by the people, because the blockchain is decentralized. It's people like you and me who have a little bit of Bitcoin who help perpetuate the use of the blockchain and the use of the Ethereum network.
So,
So that's
yeah,
it's a very, very simple explanation of the blockchain. It's a ledger. It's a digital ledger that keeps records and validates and verifies transactions using the people that are involved in that ledger technology.
so it's like a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet keeping records of who's doing what, who's giving who to what. But what makes it so great is that,
Anonymously.
and that was my point. So going go to that, decentralized and anonymous. So how is it both? And this is my question because I've always kind of struggled with this. How is it both anonymous and record keeping at the same time? So
Okay.
like how can you know?
Great question. This is actually this is something that's really important to understand if someone doesn't understand this. Um, it's anonymous because it uses an encrypted identifier.
Mm,
So like your identifier, if you've got a Bitcoin wallet, you know just how long and crazy your Bitcoin address is. Well, like you can't extract from that who's who. Now it does get a little bit, and I cover this in the book. One of the myths about Bitcoin is that it's completely anonymous. It's actually not. And if someone really, really wanted to do their homework and really had the resources to dig in, they could trace back your transactions to your IP address. And this is one of the problems with having huge exchanges like Coinbase, where a lot of people do these transactions, is because in order to have a Coinbase account, what do you need to give them? Your personal information.
your IP address.
You
Right.
get your IP address, your name, your address. Like to have an actual Coinbase account is different than owning Bitcoin. Like you have your Coinbase account, which is like any other account. Like you put your email address, your name. Yeah,
Yeah.
but like because it's financial, they're like, okay, you need to tie your bank account to this, and we need to know you are
Sure.
who you are. There are some exchanges that say you got to send us a copy. I don't know if it's like this anymore. It's been a while since I've like started an account on an exchange, but for a while it was like send us an image of your driver's license.
Driver's license. Yeah.
Like so obviously right now the anonymity aspect of cryptocurrency is really sus because you have to give a bunch of information to these exchanges in order to even use their platform in order to exchange Bitcoin and Ethereum and whatnot. So if someone really wanted to and had the resources and had the connections, they could trace your transactions back to you. It should be really tough, but they could do it, which is
Like
why if you really are wise and you want to use Bitcoin as an actual currency, you want to keep your Bitcoin stored off the internet in what's called cold storage or like a cold wallet or a Bitcoin wallet, which is like a USB device. Then it's off the internet. And
so you're saying
there are ways to anonymously do it. I would encourage people to kind of Google that. YouTube's got some great videos. By the way, YouTube's got great videos explaining the blockchain in ways that are better than I ever could because it uses visuals as well. So
Yeah.
if you're like me, the visuals really help you understand. So if you don't know what the blockchain is, go to YouTube, watch a couple videos, spend 30 minutes on it. You'll have a much, much clearer idea of what the blockchain is.
So here's up on what you just said. What is stopping the IRS from prosecuting people, I guess, from not reporting their Bitcoin gains? Because like you just said, if they have the time, they have the money, they have the resources to track people down, and it is possible, especially with as many people that are on exchanges as they are. What is stopping the IRS from prosecuting people who are not reporting their capital gains through cryptocurrency?
Resources. Manpower. I mean, like, look, if none of us comply with the IRS, by the way, if you're watching IRS, this is all just opinion, okay?
Yeah, we're using fake alcohol and drugs, just like what was it, College Rules and all this.
That's right. So look, I mean, if none of us
real
comply,
information,
then they can't do nothing. And think about the resources that it would take for them to really dive in, to have to subpoena people like Coinbase or Uphold or some of these other larger
But it is possible.
tracks. It is possible. The IRS they can, and they make it real clear that they can. And they put the fear of God into these exchanges 2 years ago, actually a little less than 2 years ago, under the Biden administration, where the government can really, really make your life hard. They can dive into all your crypto stuff if you use exchanges, the big boys. So
Gotcha.
do your homework, find ways to use your Bitcoin anonymously and safely without having to register for some exchange, and your life will be a lot easier, and you won't have to worry about dealing with some of that tax stuff.
Here's my one of my final questions. How, in terms of, like, if you're not using exchange, how is it that you're going to be able to transfer money? So the only time I've ever used Bitcoin was when I bought, believe it was on $5 tshirts.com or something. I bought like 8 t-shirts, and I used my Bitcoin wallet uh, from Coinbase to buy the that you would use that otherwise if you didn't have some sort of exchange.
You just explained it. So if there is a merchant platform, a merchant payments platform, a shopping cart software, a gateway, payment gateway,
Yeah.
where you can tap in, you obviously need to leverage the blockchain. You need to be able to access it, or it won't work. But you can access the blockchain without having to use one of the big exchanges. There are other exchanges that don't require that don't require all of your information. This is
Right.
another reason why Ethereum is so popular. Litecoin, you ever heard of Litecoin?
Yeah,
And
I have.
Litecoin is like super anonymous.
Gotcha.
If anonymity is your thing, Litecoin's your Huckleberry, because you can stay super anonymous. Again, these are things that I think people need to empower themselves. Because I could say here's exactly how you do it, but no one's going to remember that.
Right, right, right.
People need to go and see, like, okay, how do I conduct a Bitcoin transaction outside of an exchange? We need more businesses, James. This is honestly, this is what we need. This is like my call to action right now. If
Sure.
any business owner that's listening to this, find a way to start accepting cryptocurrency as a payment. We need more businesses now. We have a lot of mass adoption. We have a lot of holders of crypto, but we need more businesses willing to accept it as currency. Yes, it's risky. Yes, it's scary. Yes, it's new tech. Yes, it's a new thing. And business owners, they hate change. I have dealt with them for 18 years in payments processing. They're scared of it. But by golly, listen, if you want to save money, like when I say money, I don't mean like save a few bucks. I mean, if you want to save money being in the hands of the people, please start accepting cryptocurrency as a form of payment. That's my call to action for anyone
Is
listening.
this why? And this will be, again, one of my final questions, because this is our conversation has exceeded my expectations by tenfold. And that's not to say that I didn't think we were going to have a good conversation, but where I'm what I'm more so getting at is, the reason why Russ Ulbricht is sitting in a federal prison right now for starting to see in my day-to-day life is more and I'm hesitant. I'm really hesitant to call it nefarious enterprises, but enterprises that are under the radar of the federal government that don't necessarily report incomes. I'm talking about your gambling, especially
Sure.
outside of DraftKings, outside of all of the mainstream things you see on ESPN. If you have a local bookie, a lot of people are now starting to have Bitcoin portals where you can get paid or pay in Bitcoin and get 50% off of what your bill would be. I'm not in the drug game, but I do know people who cryptocurrency as payment for, weed that's not at your local dispensary and things along those lines. Is that reason why we have all of these people accepting it? Is this going to go mainstream, or is this going to kind of stay in the shadows?
I think what you ask is really rooted in ideology and philosophy. I
Mm,
really think it's a philosophical question,
sure.
because if you have a problem with adults consensually entering into a transaction,
Yeah.
then you're going to want the government's hands on that bookie. You're going to want the government's hands on that person who's selling a little bit of weed for Bitcoin.
Right.
And if that's where you stand, then I don't stand shoulder to shoulder with you.
Correct.
If
Yeah, I'm
that's
with
if
you on that.
that's where someone's standing. I know that's not where you stand, James. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's what if you're going if you're going to champion Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, you're going to have to really dig deep and recognize that no matter what happens with money, whether we stay on fiat or we move to something decentralized, there will always be people who are unsavory, who will want to engage in dark and illegal and unsavory acts. You
Right.
can't stop human nature from doing what it does. Human's gonna human. That's what we do. But what you can do is you can realize that there's far more good to come from embracing decentralized currency and cryptocurrency than there is worrying about a dude in Miami trying to sell a pound of weed for a little bit of Bitcoin. Just let him live.
Last question I got for you. If you had a 30-second spiel to give to someone who you don't stand shoulder to shoulder with, who is the, nanny state, who is the Karen who says, no, I need to make sure that, my kids aren't buying weed off of some guy with Bitcoin or Ethereum. What is it that you would say to them as to why you believe that cryptocurrency is, one, the future, and two, a good idea?
Love. I think it comes down to that. I think it comes down to, look in the mirror. How much do you love someone?
Hmm.
Anyone? Are you capable of loving someone you don't know? If you are, then you have to be willing to to let them be free to be who they are. If you are a nanny state advocate, then I would say, are is it worth putting handcuffs on people who are good people, who are not
Sticking them
harming
in
a soul
a cage. Yep.
just because they don't do it the way you think that they should do it? That's what I would say to them. I would say, learn to expand your love and your acceptance. If you are a Christian, especially, look at your Christianity, examine it, make sure that your Christianity isn't getting in the way of what's right. That's what I would say, stuff like that. And maybe it would get through, maybe it wouldn't. I don't know. I would just tell people, look, the answer isn't being a Karen. The answer isn't,
Sure.
tightening the noose or giving, throwing away the keys to the handcuffs or putting people behind bars. The answer is love. And to me, cryptocurrency, the adoption of it, the adoption of using it as currency, the adoption of accepting it if you're a business, to me, it's all about increasing happiness and love and tolerance and kindness and charity in the world. And that's how we win. That's how we move the needle on this whole thing. That's how we move the needle on humanity, as we increase that love. And cryptocurrency can be a way where people can have more freedom. And that, I think, allows more tolerance and more love.
Love it. I love it. And so, Eli, again, can't thank you enough, buddy. This has been an amazing hour and almost 2 hours talking with you. If there's obviously people who want to know more about the book, who want to know more about you, want to know more about cryptocurrency, everything else, being a father, being a husband, where can they go to kind of follow you?
My Facebook is where I post most of my stuff. So just search Eli Bowman on Facebook. You should see an illustration version of my face. That's me. Follow me on there. If you like my stuff, go to elibowman.com. You can find a link to the book. I think I also have links to my socials on there as well.
Perfect. Eli, can't thank you
Man,
enough.
thank you so much, James.
No, dude, we're gonna
I've
do
been
it
wanting.
again.
I've been looking forward to this for we postponed this at least twice, maybe 3 times, and I'm so glad we finally were able to do it. I hope that we can do this again at some point.
Oh,
When we met, I don't know if you remember, it was New Year's Eve, I think, or was it election night? I can't remember what it was. But we were on it was like a debate format. And man, I had a great time. I had a great time. So we met online. This is like full circle for you and I, is a live stream. So couldn't be happier to do it.
100%, 100%, dude. I've come a long way since my lusting for revolution days. I obviously can tell you have as
You have.
well.
We both have.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you're not growing, you're dying. If you still have the same opinion you had, 2 years ago, again, just like you said, examine your Christianity. I would ask you to examine yourself, because there's certain things that need to keep moving and shaking and ebbing and flowing. And so I can't of you of everything you're doing. I hope that, you know, I'm not too
Thanks.
abrasive on social media. I try to take a step back. So it's just
Nah,
good
I
to
love
have
you,
you
man.
on. Good to talk. I love having these sorts of conversations. And thank you for indulging 30 minutes.
You bet, man.
All right, buddy. Everybody, we are done. If you do need us, we are going to be live Facebook, thenextgenusa.com, LinkedIn, everything we can. We will have a guest next week as well. Hopefully, we're going to have Eli back on pretty soon to talk more about the book. Amazon.com is the best place where you can buy that book. I'll have links to it in the show notes page. Can't thank you guys enough for joining us. This hasn't been that legitimate, but it seemed legit. Thanks so much for joining us, guys.